Hello and welcome, Boom Nation. I am Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert, and I am privileged to have the time with you this Friday. We are talking today about the other F word. The other F word. Yes. So on my last session, Bruce was here with me and we were talking about a bunch of stuff, and the idea of forgiveness came up, and forgiveness is a big topic. So we were only able to touch on it that day because we only had a few minutes. And what we decided after we were done that session was that I would come back on and I would do a full session on forgiveness. So I call it the other F word because it can be tricky. It can be difficult and it can be painful. But what I'm going to share with you is that it is a necessary thing for you to move forward into your life, for you to free yourself from the things that are holding you back. It very often is necessary to forgive others, forgive yourself, which can be, for me, that one actually is harder than the forgiving of others. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff on today's program. And as we go through it, I'm going to encourage you to take notes. You can find me on Facebook at Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can also find me, of course, on your dashboard. And if you'd like to reach out to me personally, I would love to hear. Maybe one day we can have a session where people come on live and we can do some Q&A or some conversation about what are the struggles for you as you are working toward this forgiveness. So I've sort of broken it into a few different sections as we go through stuff. So we're going to start with talking about what does it mean to forgive. So really quickly before we dive in, my specialty is working with the subliminal soundtrack. So that is my terminology for this loop of messages that goes on in the back of our minds all day, every day. It's made up of little bits of information that you've gathered throughout the course of your life. Every conversation, every relationship, every lesson you've ever learned, every single experience gives you little bits of information, and we store those back there on that subliminal soundtrack. And we use that information to create our belief systems about ourselves, about the world in general, about what's possible, what's not possible. What does it mean to love or be loved? What does it mean to have money or not have money? What does success mean? And if you think about just that one piece, that success piece, isn't it true that, you know, everybody measures success differently? You've got some people who are very materially, how am I going to say this? Materially or materialistically oriented. So for them, maybe it's about the size of the bank account or the type of car they drive or the house they live in. You have other people who live very simply and still consider themselves to be incredibly successful because they feel that they're making a difference in the world. So you see, everybody's got their own yardstick that they measure these things by. And that yardstick is what we create from the subliminal soundtrack. So when we find ourselves in a position where something is holding us back, and very often we can't quite figure out what that is, a lot of the times that's because of the information that's on our subliminal soundtrack. Because the really fascinating thing is this: what we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. Did you hear that? Even if it's based on completely incorrect information. So think about, a circumstance maybe where we have two people that are standing right beside each other. The same thing happens right in front of them, and they both have a different story. They both have a different version. they have a different version because their experience helps them to sort of process and figure out what that thing is that's just happened. And that is what I'm talking about when I say subliminal soundtrack. So when it comes to this thing about forgiveness, I'm going to be really honest with you and let you know this is something that has been a thing that I have worked on for years and years and years and years. And I'm pretty good at it most of the time. And there are still times that I get hung up in this. So what I'm sharing with you is real life stuff that I have learned that has helped me to make it through some of these circumstances that have been very difficult. One of the things when it comes to forgiveness is that I think that there are varying grades, or I don't have another word for it, but do you understand what I mean? Like maybe it's a scale or something. So this one is this and this one up here is that. And I think that very often that's because we have different relationships with people. Okay. So when the people who we don't really know very well do something that offends us or upsets us, it's probably not that difficult to let that go because they're not a main person in our world, if that makes sense. But if somebody is really close to you, a close friend or maybe a family member, and they do something that causes your feelings to be hurt, or they make a decision that impacts you in a difficult way, or whatever that may be, the closer the person is to us, I do believe the more deeply that we're going to be affected by whatever it is that happens. So if you think about, you're driving home from work one day or driving to the mall or whatever it is that you do, and somebody cuts you off in traffic. Now that's a complete stranger, right? So maybe, depending on the day, maybe you get kind of ticked off, and you're justified to get kind of ticked off. Where this would become a problem, though, is if you get to your destination and you're still stewing in that whole thing, right? It's very easy for us to find a place of forgiveness. It's much easier, at least, with people who are not really in our world. Okay, does that make sense? Does that make sense that the closer they are? So for example, if your spouse or your sister or your dear close friend says something that hurts your feelings, it's going to matter a whole lot than if somebody says it in a parking lot, right? So that's what we're working with. Different varying degrees of forgiveness. What we're going to be talking about throughout the course of today's session is that deep forgiveness where you have been deeply wounded, where maybe your heart is even broken. Maybe you're in a place of tremendous grief, and it's necessary for you to release yourself, because that's what forgiveness really is.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
We have these ideas sometimes, and I know I used to, and this was one of the reasons why this was sort of a struggle for me to get a handle on. I used to have this idea that to forgive someone gave them a free pass. So essentially, if I were going to forgive somebody for doing something to me, essentially what that meant was that they got away with it scot-free. And if it was really, really unkind or unpleasant, I didn't feel good about letting them off scot-free. Do you see what I mean? So what I learned later, and I've heard this, I'm not sure who to quote with this particular thing, but what I've heard is that unforgiveness or carrying a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. Do you understand? So what we really have to start to understand is we have no control over anybody but ourselves. That is a huge lesson. We have no control over what other people do, what they say, the decisions they make, any of that stuff. The only person that we can be responsible for is ourselves. So when we find ourselves in these kinds of circumstances, one of the things that often is difficult to come to is that very often whatever happened has absolutely nothing to do with us. It may hurt. It may cause us to feel all kinds of ugly things. It might even impact our life in a negative or difficult way. But very often it has absolutely nothing to do with us. And the sooner that we can arrive at that space where we can understand that, and that is, I believe, where that varying degree thing comes in. The sooner that we can get to the place where we understand that whatever has happened was about that person's whatever, their decision, their feelings, their whatever it was. And we are talking specifically about sort of disagreements between people when we're talking about this forgiveness. There are other things that we could talk about, but that's what I'm focusing on today. So very often we find ourselves in a situation where our lives have been impacted by someone else's choices, their words, their actions, whatever the case may be. And when we refuse to release that is when it starts to cause problems for us. So I want you to picture just for a second, just like a backpack or a sack or something like that. And think about it like this. That person who or not ran me off the road, but cut me off in traffic. If I wanted to pick that up and make it a big deal, then I could pick that up and just imagine it as a rock or a weight of some description. I could pick up that rock and I could put it in my backpack and I could throw that over my back. And now I've got to carry that. Do you see what I'm saying? And then somebody else does something and I pick up that rock and I throw it in that backpack and I'm carrying more and more and more. Eventually, it's going to get pretty heavy. Eventually, it's going to get very hard to carry. And not only that, almost more importantly, the energy that I have to expend to carry that load, to keep that load on my back as I'm going through life, is energy that I could be spending having fun, playing, writing, speaking, dancing, anything that I enjoy doing a sport, going for a lovely walk, any number of other things. If you really think about it, isn't it that heavy sack on your back that just sort of sucks the life out of you, sucks the energy away so you don't have it to go and do those fun things, to hang out with your friends or your spouse or your partner or whomever, to go and do something nice for a neighbor. When we're carrying around that load, it drains us. It also can cause illness and disease in our body. So it's important for us to understand what it is that we're dealing with. There are people out there, it's very obvious that heart problems, strokes, things like that, they are aggravated, if not created, by stress. So it's easy for us to understand how, not releasing those negative emotions can actually affect our health. And that's a very important thing. So you get to choose. You get to choose. Are you going to continue to carry the weight of that backpack with you, or are you going to release yourself? Are you going to release yourself? Here's another sort of ugly truth. When we refuse to forgive people, they don't know, and they probably don't care. So again, we are drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. Okay? The people who matter in our worlds and who we matter to, they're the people that we're going to try to work things out, and it's not that we don't do silly things or I have it all the time. Things pop out of my mouth And I didn't realize what I was going to say. I didn't quite think it through. Most of the time, it's funny. Most of the time, it's really funny. But sometimes I say something without thinking it through, and I unintentionally cause harm to someone that I care about. So what do? I apologize. I do my best to make it right. But if I don't know that I've done something or said something that's upset someone else, then I'm not in a position to do anything about that, correct? These are the things we need to think about. So the people who are closest to us can harm us deeply more so or easier than other people can. But generally, those are also the people that we're going to work things out with. Now, I want to go back for a second to this idea that I shared a moment ago about forgiving being a thing that gave people a free pass. That isn't what forgiveness is about. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself. It has nothing to do with the other person. The other person, you may walk around feeling like, oh, they owe me an apology. And maybe you're right. And as long as you choose to hold on to that, I am owed, I am due, I am due an apology. As long as you choose to hold on to that, that is a weight that you are carrying with you. So you can make a choice to wait until hell freezes over in some cases and that apology finally comes, if it ever does. Or you can do what you need to do to work through your stuff and let it go without the other party even having to have a conversation with you. You have the power to do that. And we are going to go through a few of those steps as we go through this session. So when we are working on this idea of forgiving, it is all about releasing ourselves, freeing ourselves from the past, from the situation, from the pain and the heartache and all of that kind of stuff, and about laying down that heavy load. So lay it down. You do not need to carry it. And you may be surprised. You may be surprised at how much energy you then have to go and do things that you haven't done for a long time, maybe. What would it be like if you could just begin again? And that's what life is. It's about starting over and starting over and starting over and starting over. We learn, we grow, we evolve. And this is part of that process. It's a very important skill. It's a very, very important skill to learn. So the other thing about forgiveness, where it is a benefit to us, the other thing about this is that it creates space. So I want you to just take your hand and make a fist for a second. Now, take your hand and whatever's nearby, a pen, a phone, whatever is nearby, a cup, I don't care what it is. Take that fist and try to pick it up. Take your fist and try to pick up something, anything. Here's the thing. As long as we have the hold on that thing, as long as we are determined to not let go of that thing, we don't have a hand to pick up our phone or a pen or a mouse or a paper or anything else. We can't make space or room for people who could bring us incredible joy or wisdom or peace or whatever it is. We can't make room for new circumstances, new activities, new things to come into our world. As long as we have that fist tightly balled and are refusing to let go of that grudge that we are carrying, we cannot use that hand to pick something else up. It's a very important thing to understand. It's very important to understand. All right, so now we're going to go into this part of the presentation where I want to talk about what keeps us stuck. So very often, the main culprit, I'm going to say the main culprit in this is our own emotions. Our own emotions influence so much. Remember, we talked about the subliminal soundtrack. So our subliminal soundtrack will have messages on it that said, I I should feel this way. I should feel that way. If this happens, then this is an appropriate reaction. Do you understand where I'm going? All of that stuff is programmed on there. So if I have, for example, if I have a belief system that says that people who do bad things deserve to be punished, and we're gonna do a really quick exercise in a minute, so I'm going to ask you right now to just deserve to be punished. How does that feel in your body to have this energy about that's wrong and that person deserves punishment? How does that feel in your body? It feels tight and constricting. And it's like there's so much judgment in that statement. There's so much judgment. There is so little room left in that statement for other pieces of information, for whatever else. Now, I'm not saying that people do or don't. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that your belief system about this will influence how easy or how difficult it is for you to release yourself by forgiving. Because if you buy into this idea that this is a bad thing and therefore you deserve punishment, then that's going to create that righteousness, that justified. Do you understand? Like that, just feel it. It's like I'm right and you're wrong. And that's the thing. If you have the need to be right, by definition, my friend, there must be someone who is wrong. Now, what if you could be in a space, a different sort of space? And again, I'm going to ask you to sort of just be with your body for a minute as I'm saying these next few things. What if you could be in a space that allowed for other people to feel how they feel, that allowed that another person may have a different side to a story, that allowed for you to be free of the weight of carrying all of that right and wrong and judgment stuff? What could it be like for you to feel? Like, how would that feel in your body? Would it feel sort of comfy and relaxed and easy rather than that constricted space? Play with that a little bit. And we're not going to talk too much more about it on here because we only have so much time. But just maybe over the weekend or, one evening when you've got a bit of time, just make a note somewhere and just sit with those things and see what feels nicer for you in your body. What feels nicer to be in the space of, well, you know what? I don't have to agree with them. They don't have to agree with me. It's all good. We used to, when I was growing up, there was this idea that we would agree to disagree. So that person has their opinion, I have my opinion, and we're both allowed to have that, and it's okay. Do you see what I'm saying? We don't have to argue. We don't have to prove who's right and who's wrong. There's no point in that. We can just be okay with, you have your story, I have mine, great. Now we get on with our lives. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this getting into that space of ease. And that space where you can generate the things that you actually do. You have the energy, you have the space, you don't have that fist balled up tight so that you can choose something different that might be fun today, right? Getting into that space. So I'm going to ask you to do that sometime when we're not on this particular session. Just take a few minutes and just be with your body. Be with the words that we're using and see how it feels on one side and on the other. So some of these emotions that we feel, anger, hurt, grief, deep sadness, betrayal, those sorts of emotions are some of the ones, and they can very much be like quicksand. So, quicksand is that like really wet, and we can sink really quickly into it. Or even, a swamp where there's really deep muck at the bottom of the water. People can get kind of mired in that muck. They can't pull their foot out. So therefore they can't move forward. Unforgiveness is kind of like that. Okay. We can't move. We can't make progress. We can't go toward anything because we are stuck in place. And that is what happens when we carry a grudge, when we hold on to things and refuse to release ourselves or release the other person. When we are stuck in these emotions, one of the other things that happens is that we make it about someone else. Follow me here. We make it about that person, the thing that they said, the thing that they did, the decision that they made, whatever it is, now is at fault. That person and whatever they've done is now at fault for whatever is going on in my world. And that makes me a victim, doesn't it? So I'm a victim of this person and their actions or their words or whatever it was. I'm a victim of that person. And now I've given them my power because I'm their victim. So what we need to do is we need to take that power back. We need to be responsible for ourselves and leave it like you don't have to own their stuff and you don't have to give them a free pass. This is not about saying that whatever happened was not a bad thing or that somebody did something that hurt you. It's not about that. We're not, trying to candy coat anything. It doesn't matter. And that's the ouchy kind of thing is it doesn't matter unless you allow it to matter. And it doesn't have power unless you give it power. If you step into a victim mode, that is a choice that you are making. And you are then handing your power over to someone else. So the only way to free ourselves is we must take back that power. We must stand in our power in order to create the life we desire. Otherwise, our lives are going to be dictated by everything and everyone around us. Our circumstances are going to be the thing that creates our lives. And I know this because I lived it for a very long time. I didn't understand this personal development thing. I didn't understand that many of the things that come into my life are things that I have called into my life, that I have created, or that I have allowed. Do you see what I'm saying? As soon as I started to understand this, my entire life started to shift because I no longer felt like I was living at the mercy of other people. I no longer felt like I had to. Do you see what I'm saying? All of that, it does not feel good to feel like you have to, or you are a victim of someone or something else, does it? It doesn't feel good at all. So that's the thing. In order for us to turn this around, the only thing that we can do is to take back our power. And part of the way that we have to do that is by letting that fist open so that we can choose other things. Now, one of the things that I will confess to you on tonight's session is that for me, one of the really difficult pieces of getting this, like really starting to understand this process and what it meant and how to do it, was other people's opinions. Remember, I just said I lived at the mercy of other circumstances. I had no idea that I was in the driver's seat of my own life. Do you understand? So other people's opinions mattered more because I was not standing in my power. Other people's opinions mattered more than my own. That is no way to live. It's no way to live. It's not up to anyone else to decide how you should feel, the action you should or should not take. It's not that we don't listen to people that we respect. It's not that we don't take into consideration the opinions of the people that we care about. It's not that we don't use that in our process of making these decisions, but the decision must be yours. It's not up to somebody else to say that, this person doing that thing is terrible. It's a terrible thing and you should hate them for the rest of your life. I don't choose that. I don't choose to do that. I don't want to live that way. I don't want that energy in my world. I just don't want to live that way. And believe me, I have no judgment. I mean, if that's how you choose to live, then God bless you. And off I go. Off I go, because I won't have it in my world. Do you see what I'm saying? So other people's opinions. This is another really important piece. How other people feel is not your responsibility. Mm-hmm. How other people feel is not your responsibility. Now, this showed up for me really, really big a couple of weeks ago. Thanks, Bruce. Really, really big a couple of weeks ago. There was somebody in my world that I'd gotten stuck. I'd gone into that quicksand, and I'd actually gotten myself really stuck in that muck, in that swamp. And I was feeling so like, just uncomfortable. And I really feel like I need to do something about this, but I don't know what to do. And I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And then what happened was that these particular people came back with, I said, this is my truth. This is how I feel. This is what I believe to be best for me under these circumstances. And most of the people in my world would say, great. How can we work that out? Or I wish you well, or whatever it is, because sometimes walking away, sometimes it's that we need to, maneuver things or shift things around so that it works for everybody. In this particular case, what actually came back was, how dare you? And you have upset me, and that was not kind. And then my own demons started dancing around. Do you see? Because that was the language. Those were my trigger points. And I think they knew it. And that's what makes it kind of, I think they knew that some of those trigger points were there. And so what I did, and this is when you start to figure out how much you have grown, when you start to see, and the way you see this is because of how you react to the circumstances, how you feel under those circumstances. When this message came back to me, I sat with it for a couple of hours, and then I went, okay, and it's not up for discussion. This is my decision. I'm not trying to upset you. I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but this is my decision. And then there was another, and when the next one, I just deleted the whole bloody thing. I didn't care. Do you see what I'm saying? So we have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to make the choices that are right for us, regardless of whether or not other people agree with us. So the other people's opinions thing, drop it. I've heard over and over again this thing, and I love it. I used to care what other people thought of me until I tried to pay my bills with their opinions. Do you see what I'm saying? I can't pay my bills with your opinions. You don't live in my house. You don't work in my work. You have no consequence. Your opinion is your opinion. But if I choose to make a decision based on that, I'm going to get the consequences of whatever your opinion was. And maybe that's not the right way for me to go. This is what I'm saying. So see, we're talking about forgiveness. We're also talking about personal power and personal responsibility. Do you see how it all sort of flows together? This personal development journey will help you grow in so many ways, because it all sort of feeds and ties in together. It really is wonderful. Now, the last point on this, what keeps us stuck? This one now, my grandmother, okay, I come from Scottish, Irish, I don't even know. And we've got some really stubborn people in my family. My grandmother could hold on to a grudge better than any person I have ever met in my entire life. And I say that with love. I absolutely adored her. And this was one of her quirks. She could hold on to it, and she would, oh man, she would think about what kind of revenge and all of that kind of stuff. And like you hear these stories about revenge as a dish best served cold or whatever, right? You hear all this stuff going along. Anyway, The best revenge, the best revenge, if you have been really wronged by someone else, absolute best revenge is for you to create a full, happy, fulfilling life for yourself without them. That is the truth. That is absolutely the truth. The best way for you to move forward is focused on you. Don't let them have that. Don't let them have that over you. Okay, so now we're going to dig in a little bit into the hows. This is where you may want to grab yourself a pen and paper and make note of this, or you can go back and you can watch the video again after. I just need a quick sip of water here. So one of the things that I do when I've got stuff sort of stuck and rolling around and it's not comfortable, one of the things that I really find helps me is to journal. I know not everybody feels that way. There are lots of different things that you can do. You can meditate. You can, go for a walk in nature can be lovely. I wash the dishes sometimes and find that very, very soothing. So anything that you can do that will help you to just get into a quiet space. Now, again, you may want to write some of this stuff down. You could also record it. I mean, most phones have some app on there that you could speak into that would record it, but it's important for you to have an idea of what kinds of answers you come up with when we go through these questions. So I've got 5 questions that I'm going to ask you to process in your time, your journaling, your meditation, whatever it is that you're going to do. Okay. So question number 1, what do I have to gain from holding on to this? What do I have to gain from holding on to this? And it's important that you be really honest with yourself. The only honest answer that I have been able to come up with that makes any sense, and there might be another one. If you come up with another one, I would love to hear it, by the way. If you are in a position where you must go to war, if you must do battle with someone, it's probably important for you to hold on to this until you're done. Okay? That is the only time that I have been able to think of. Bruce, if you're there and you have any ideas on what else might suit you, but I've got no other ones. That is the only one that I can come up with. So again, question 1, what do I have to gain from holding on to this?
The
Bruce,
simple answer is nothing.
Thank you.
That's the only one. That's the only one that it's the only one that I'll say doesn't just keep you perpetuating the same cycle over and over again.
Absolutely true. Thank you.
Just let it go.
Just let it go. Mm-hmm. He's absolutely correct. This is a very wise man, by the way. So now the second question that I'm going to throw at you, and this can be a really uncomfortable thing to ask yourself, but do it anyway. And remember, whatever you're writing down or whatever you're recording, however you're recording it, you don't have to share this with anybody else. But if you're trying to work through this process, some of these things may surprise you and may enlighten you to the things that are actually keeping you stuck there. So the second question, what is holding on to this costing me? Is it costing you your peace of mind? Is it costing you your energy? Remember, we were carrying around that big, heavy bag that was getting heavier and heavier with every grudge we put in there, right? So is it costing you your energy? Is it costing you your emotion? Is it causing you to interact with the important people in your life differently than you would like to? People get snippy and snappy and unkind sometimes when they're stressed and uncomfortable. So is it causing you to be with the people that you really want to love, maybe not so lovable? Is it costing you your money? Is it costing you your sleep? Whatever you come up with on this, write it down. This part is very important to write down. Oh, Bruce just says, what is costing you? Yes. To miss in your life. Yes. I mean, I'm one of those weird people. I'm very open about this. I'm a total weirdo. But like if I see a beautiful sunrise or the sky is, oh man, you will see me light up over silly things like that. So if I'm all focused on this angry stuff that's got me all balled up and tied up in knots, if I'm focused on that, I wonder how many sunrises I'm going to miss, or how many walks with my dog, or maybe a beautiful singing bird, or anything. What is it costing you? What is it causing you to miss in your life? Very important to get clear on that. And I'm going to suggest that if you can't come up with anything, maybe find someone who's really close that you trust, like really trust, and ask them. Because sometimes the people that are in our lives that are closest to us will see these things causing us to behave differently, or even, you don't look like you're resting well. You look tired. You don't look well. Are you okay? Those are important things to pay attention to. So that's question 2. Question 3, is there anything I can do about this? Sometimes we have situations, and I know there's like I don't even know what they call it, but like I'm going to say the 8 stages of grieving or something like that, right? And I know that one of them is the anger. So if you've lost somebody in your life who was very important to you, it is not even a little bit unusual for you to have anger, or to feel like you've lost them. They're gone. They're gone, and they left you that abandonment feeling, right? That's not even a little bit unusual. And if they're gone, there's not a whole lot that they can do about that. There's not a whole lot that you can do about that. There are a lot of other situations where maybe you could have a conversation or write a letter or something like that. But it's important to just yes or no. Is there anything that you can do about this? If you get a yes, I'm going to encourage you to take action. And again, that could be, even if someone has passed away, it can be as simple as writing them a letter. This is how I feel now. This is how I miss you. You must find a direction. Think about it that way. You must find a direction for those difficult emotions to get them out, whether that's through writing, whether that's through a letter, whether that's through exercise or physical activity. I know one year when I was really, really into some gardening, I was moving a mound of dirt around, and it was so therapeutic. It was crazy. Bruce says music is great. There are so many things. One of the things that I also like to do is go for a long drive with the music cranked up loud. There are lots of things that people can do that help them. But when I'm doing that, I'm singing very, very loud, and nobody probably wants to hear that. But do you see what I'm saying? We have to funnel it and channel it out of our body. Bruce says driving fast. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. On the highway, speed limits and all that sort of stuff. It can be so many things. So you will know better than anybody else. What are the things that help you to release? Maybe I know some people like to punch a punching bag, or, things like that, right? So figure out what it is for you and then go do that. Maybe it's taking a bath. I don't know. Figure out what that is for you and then do that. Now, question number 4. What do I need to do to release this? What do I need to do to release this? Only you can answer that. One of the things when I've gone through some of the more difficult challenges in my world is I have looked to other people to tell me what I need to do to make the pain stop, to tell me what I need to do to move past this, because it hurts so much right now. And if you're in that spot, I'm just going to send you so much love right now. If you are in that spot where it just hurts so much, love yourself, be gentle with yourself, allow yourself the time and the space, find those channels that you can direct those feelings outside of your body. Find support. That can be, it could be a counselor, a doctor, a coach. It could be a close friend or family member. It needs to be someone that is safe, that can allow you to show up however you are in the moment. You know, whatever you look like, however you sound, say whatever you need to say without judgment, allow you to feel whatever you feel without judgment, cry if you need to cry, scream if you need to scream, whatever it is. If you need help, people are out there that will help you. And if you don't have somebody, call me. Call me. And this is one of the things that we are working. I know, and I'm including myself in the we here. I'm just letting you know. Bruce and Morrow are creating this community, this Boom Nation thing. And that is one of the things that is a beautiful spinoff of a loving, supportive community. Is there will always be somebody there that can help you. Always be somebody there that can help you, can support you, can give you that space, maybe can give you a good swift kick in the butt sometimes too, if that's what you need, because sometimes we need to stop wallowing, get back on our feet and get on with things. Okay. And I'm sorry, that's the not so pretty side of this, but it is absolutely true. You can waste your entire life wallowing in this stuff if you choose to. Once again, you won't be part of my team because I don't tolerate that very well. I'll give you some time. I'll give you some love. I'll help you find your feet again. And then we're going to get going. Do you see what I'm saying? You want to stay there and wallow? That's okay. I'll be 5 miles down the road by the time you're done. That's okay. It's all good. Okay. So question number 5. Now this is where it can get fun. So if I drop that big, heavy sack that I've been carrying, if I were to just drop it and let it go, what would open up for me if I did release that? All right. So remember, we talked about that fist balled tight. What could I choose with an open hand? What could I choose? Think about that for a second. Could you choose? What couldn't you choose? I mean, really, what couldn't you choose? You could choose new people. You could choose new place to work, a new place to live, a new career, a new anything. What couldn't you choose? As long as that hand is open, you can pick up anything, can't you? So what could you allow into your life if you were willing to let it go, drop that big heavy sack and open yourself up to what else is available to you? What else is available? Everything. There is no limit. Everything is available. If you are willing to go after it and do what is required, everything is available to you. There are no limits. So how do you get there? You let this crap go that's weighing you down and holding you back and keeping you stuck in that place that isn't healthy. It's not fun. It's not fun to be there. And I promise you, here's another uncomfortable truth. You're not much fun to be around if you're wallowing around in this. I'm sorry, it is true. And we've all been around those people. We've probably also been those people from time to time. You're not much fun. So how about we get on with life and start creating some fun and joyful stuff? What do you think? I mean, that's what I'm all about. It's not that I don't have hard times. It's not that I don't hurt. It's not that my heart doesn't break. It's not that I don't experience these pains or these struggles. It's that I choose to do the work as soon as I can, as quickly as I can, and thoroughly. Okay. So we want this to be like an efficient process, not a rush through and move on to the next thing. So I don't have to think about this anymore. We want to do the work to release it and let it go so that it's gone. It's no longer in that bag. In fact, that bag maybe hopefully is no longer on your back. So now you're free to do whatever you want. Go skip and play, do whatever you want. Do you see what I'm saying? It's all available to you. This is where the freedom comes in. So what could you create for yourself? What could you have if you were willing to let it go? Play with that. Think about that. What would you like? What would you like? And in that exercise, if you're doing some writing, I'm going to ask you to write down 5 things. 5 things that you would like to bring into your world. For me, When I became single, I went for belly dancing classes. I went over to a friend of mine has a pool. I went over there every opportunity I could and swam with her. I started to go to the gym. I started to date. Do you see what I'm saying? What's available to you if you're willing to let it all go and move forward? The only person who limits you is you. There you go. More wisdom. All right. So the last step of this, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit chilly, so this thing keeps on falling down on me. Take action. It doesn't even matter what your action is. Take action to move forward. One little tiny step. One little tiny step to move forward and begin to let this go. One tiny step. Dance with your demons. Those little voices that are dance with them. Don't let them have control. And stop giving away your power. Take it back. You are nobody's victim. You are nobody's victim unless you choose to be. Now, the last thing again, get help if you need it. We've talked about that. Counselors, doctors, coaches, friends, family, whomever you need, me, Boom Nation, become part of this amazing community. And maybe one day someone will reach out to you because they need your help. What do you think of that? Won't it be amazing when you have your own success story that you can share and say, you know, I know how hard this is because I've been there. I've been there and you can get here too. And I'm going to help you. Won't that be wonderful when you're in a position to do that? I'm sending you so much love. I'm sending you so much positivity. And I know that you can do this. I know that you can do this. Now, we have a few more minutes and then I'm going to wrap this up. So here's confession time. This piece of the forgiveness thing for me is the absolute hardest part. Forgiving yourself. So I'm going to say a couple of years ago, one of my very, very close friends, so this is the marriage has ended, you know, I'm getting on with my life, blah, 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 but I was still carrying around a lot of anger and stuff, justifiably so. You know, nobody could fault me under the circumstances, and I'm not going to go into that, but if you knew the circumstances, justifiably so. Was I helping myself? No. Was I hindering myself? Yes. And my friend said to me one day, she says, you know, Jackie, at some point you're going to have to forgive yourself. I got so mad. I was like, oh my God, what did I do that needs to be forgiven? And don't you just love it when something like that happens? And then, you know, a little while later, you're like, oh. So here's what happened. And I'm not going to go deep into this, but it came to me that I had actually allowed certain things to happen in my life. I had not only allowed some things to happen, I had allowed them to continue. I had put myself in a position where I made that kind of access to myself possible. Do you see what I'm saying? And so now this is where that subliminal soundtrack, those messages about my own worth, about what I deserved, about how I should be treated. All of that stuff. And I've been working on that stuff for a while. And that last piece had to fall into place because what I understood was that in that circumstance, I hadn't done anything wrong, but I had let myself down by not valuing myself more, by not knowing my worth, by not knowing that I deserved better and allowing those things to happen. I had let myself down. When I understood that, then I could start to pull that out. And when I'm talking about pulling these things out and looking at them, I want to be really clear. Sometimes there is a necessity to purge the emotions. Sometimes we can approach it from curiosity. Like, wow, okay, so I let myself down. Now, why did I do that? What was that about? And what can I do to change it so this doesn't happen again? Huh? What do you think? Could you get into that? Like now, oh my gosh. Do you think anyone's ever going to get away with treating me like that again? No. No, they're not. And it's not because I'm angry or I'm bitter or do you see what I'm saying? It's none of that. It's that the healing that can happen when you forgive, the healing that can happen allows you to start to see how valuable you are, your worth, your what you deserve, the contribution you are, all of that stuff. When you can heal those worthiness and deservingness and all of that jumble of stuff that's on that and create a new soundtrack that says, you know what? You are a beautiful creation. There has never been on this planet and never will be again someone who is exactly like you. Never, never. The likelihood, like millions of cells were involved in your creation process and 2 of them survived it. Okay, so I'm not going to do the math on that, but think about that. Millions of cells were involved and 2 of them combined to make you. And those 2 combined to make you exactly physically who you are. Now, whatever your belief system is, I believe that there is a God. I believe that there is a higher power. And I believe that I was created to be exactly what I am, good, bad, all of it. Without every single piece of that, I would not be who I am. I would not be Jackie. I would not have learned the lessons that I've learned. I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had. So think about that again. One person, you are the only you that there ever could be or will be ever again. Born into your family, surrounded by your people, your circumstances, with the lessons and conditioning that afforded you, that all of it. There will never be another person that is you. So if we learn to release all of that unforgiveness that we've been talking about, the bitterness, the anger, the pain, the hurt, the grief, if we learn to release that and then turn that eye kindly on ourselves and say, okay, what is my part of this? What is my part? What do I need to own about this thing? And that's where your magic lies, because then you can start to see, I didn't value myself enough. I didn't understand. I didn't know. And then you can say, okay, I didn't know better then, but I do now. You did the best you could at that time with those circumstances, and now you will do better. And with that, you release that thing and forgive yourself. Now, there's one last thing that I would like to sort of kick around for a moment. Bruce, you might have some thoughts on this. I've been having this conversation with a friend of mine. She's also a coach, and we talk about this forgiveness thing. And she is very firmly in the, if you have not forgotten, you have not forgiven camp. And I tend to have a bit of a different way of being with that thing, because I don't like the idea of the free pass. And when I think about forgetting that something happened, for me, that's kind of what I hear, is that, okay, so this happened and I give you a free pass, and what, then you come back and do it to me again? That's kind of I have a bit of a struggle with this whole forgetting thing. So if you don't mind, Bruce, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Forgiving is not forgetting. They are 2 separate things.
Mm-hmm.
You can absolutely forgive the other person and forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would actually encourage people not to forget. Stefan, who's one of our coaches on Give to Get as well too, had a session earlier this week, and he talked about it because he deals in smart recovery, people that have addictive behaviors and that.
Mm-hmm.
And he cited an example of, somebody stealing. You can forgive them for the things that they stole and truly forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
Next time they're over, you put those things away.
Yes.
Because you haven't forgotten.
Precisely.
And so I absolutely believe that you forgive and you don't necessarily forget. That might be a decision you make later down the road, that you do forgive over time. But
Mhm.
for right now, no, forgive, absolutely, because
Mhm.
forgiveness allows you to move on, allows the other person to move on, allows everybody to move on emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, physically.
Mhm.
Don't forget.
Thank
They
you. I
even talk
agree.
about that in the book, The Speed of Trust, where again, Stephen Covey Jr. talked about a situation where, very good friends, trusted him in business, it went sideways, and very much he forgave him for that. And hey, I trust you in all areas of my life. I will not trust you in business going forward. I forget. I forgave what happened. Let's move forward. Let's have our friendship. I will not forget in business, and therefore I will not trust.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I think that's very valuable. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
So one of the things that I think for me is the importance of the thing. So like there's an almost energetic charge around anger. If you think about it, there's, that like, when we remove that energetic charge, that thing is no longer important in the same way. So I think the importance of the thing can diminish, and we don't put ourselves back in that same position, because if you keep putting yourself back in the same position and allowing that thing to happen again and again and again, that's not forgiveness. That's becoming a doormat. So on that note, I'm trying to think if I've got anything. Oh, I've got a quote that I'll leave you with. So when you have been deeply hurt or harmed, it can be hard to release that and move on. But holding on to things that don't serve us will lock us up and allow for further pain or harm. Let it go, free yourself, and move forward to create a life that makes you happy. So on that note, my friends, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. I love being here. If you have any questions, I sincerely mean it. Please let me know. And again, maybe we can have a session one day where we talk about some of these things as a discussion that we can share and learn from each other. Thank you so much again. Have a great night.